أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Distinguished Ayatollah Araki, Lord Nazir Ahmed, distinguished scholars, my very dear brothers and sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's indeed an honor to be asked to speak at this auspicious, blessed gathering in this blessed month, to remember the most blessed human being that we have known in our lives, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'd like to thank the organizers for organizing this wonderful event. May Allah accept, and may this event bring the Muslims of this country together, and may the message that we have heard from the distinguished scholars today and the leaders enable us to take this forward to the rest of the world. Because I believe we are a very privileged community. We are privileged because here we experience and live diversity. We, as a Muslim community, are a small model of the Ummah living in this open and free society. We have great opportunities, and I think this gathering allows us to make use of those opportunities. Now the problem is, when you're the last speaker, is that most of the things you wanted to say have been said. And I would admit that today have been said by much better and much more learned people. And secondly, the audience. For you now, it's time to enjoy the entertainment which you're waiting for, and perhaps have your food. So I'm really in the way. I will be therefore brief, but I'd like to really highlight a couple of important points which I think are important for us to take forward from a gathering like this. Now, one aspect and quality of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that stands out, that Ayatollah Araki very beautifully highlighted by reciting from the Quran that beautiful verse which says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And I think this is one point I would like you to go with tonight from here. We are the ambassadors, followers of somebody who was nothing but mercy and compassion for the world. And the question we have to ask, and I've been told, and linguists are here, Arabic linguists are sitting here, that when in Arabic it is said like this, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا, the emphasis makes it exclusive, that you have been sent only as mercy for the mankind, for the alameen, for the creation, for the whole world. We have been living as a community for good 5 decades. The question is, what compassion have people seen from us? How do our neighbors see us? How do the old, the elderly people in our society, our community see us? Till that compassion becomes the defining feature of our community, we will not receive the blessings of Allah, and we will not be established and secured firmly in this country. This is the message of Rabiul Awwal that we need to remind ourselves, my dear brothers and sisters. And it is not just mercy amongst ourselves. We have heard, sadly, the increasing tensions between the Shia Muslims, brothers of mine, and Sunni Muslim brothers and sisters of mine. Now that is another element where we have to come up with this mercy and compassion. And as Tariq Ramadan has quite beautifully illustrated, how we have to free our minds and our hearts. It's freeing our minds and hearts that enable us to do that. Second point that I think is very important, I'm going to leave a few things. But again, on the issue of that compassion and mercy, we've heard the last message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also for all creation around us. Today we talk about issues of environment. Do we see as an act and a duty upon us to do something about environment, that we have become cruel, unjust to the environment in which we live and breathe. As Muslims, how often do we hear from pulpits that that is also an ibadah for us to develop strategies for the environment, for the animal welfare? Why these issues are the issues which non-Muslims champion and we always lag behind? When we have beautiful saying of our beloved Prophet ﷺ that a man who quenches his thirst when he is thirsty, but then he sees a dog panting with thirst, and he goes and brings the water from the well to give that dog, and Rasulullah says that this act of his loved so much by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he is granted salvation for that act. When we have teachings from this Rahmatul lil Alameen like these, then why aren't we in the forefront for justice, for the animals, for the asylum seekers, for the refugees, for the underprivileged, the unemployed, the disabled in our society? That's where I think we have a duty and we have a responsibility. Human beings are al-khalqu ayalullah. As our beloved Prophet said, whole creation, let's follow the fatwa of Dr. Tariq Ramadan here because time is short. But the whole creation is the family of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Quran says, وَمَا كَانَ النَّاسُ إِلَّا أُمَّةً كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةٌ وَاحِدَةً. That the whole mankind, this whole idea of us ukhrijat linnas, we have been brought out for the mankind, and we begin to look outwardly, we will become united. When we look outwardly, as we saw in that beautiful clip, and I think that clip sums up the message for me today when we saw the two brothers praying. And in that clip we saw that when we face the outside world, we begin to feel brothers and sisters. When we take up the issues of the bigger world, then that will enable us to come together. And for that again we have many examples. Lord Nazir Ahmed referred to some of those. Helpful Fadhil, for example, a pact that our beloved Prophet, even before becoming the Prophet, he joined hands with the people of Mecca, some of the people of Mecca who felt passionately about injustices being committed against vulnerable people. It was a vulnerable trader who came and sold his goods and he was denied his money. And Prophet said, we will from today stand up for all vulnerable people. Whoever is denied his right, we will go and fight for that person's right. Look at the Misaq-e-Medina. Again, people of all different faiths coming together to create a society where everyone can live justly and equally. This is the message of the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we need to learn and we need to practice and we need to make alive amongst ourselves. Our living in this country by brothers and sisters places a huge responsibility upon us from the angle of how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to see us on the day of judgment. And therefore we have to become very responsible and pay attention that we have not just come here to make our standard of living better. I often say this, that this growth of Muslim communities, this changing of the skyline, we see that now we have 2,000 plus mosques. We have seen the statistics that 1 out of 10 child born is Muslim. We have seen census figures that we are now 4.78% of the population. This is not just an accident of history. It's not just an accident of history. You can go back to the Quran and see when we are told that Yusuf alayhi salam is brought to the places of power and influence in Egypt. One could say, well, it was just domestic violence that took place. His brothers did not like him. They hated him. They threw him in the well. And by accident of history, he ended up in that place. One can say the same thing about Musa alayhi salam coming to the court of Pharaoh. One can say, look, what happened is there was a political issue with his people, his ethnic group, and therefore his mother was inspired, thought the idea that to save this baby of hers, she should just throw him into the river Nile. This is how one can read, but only later on we discover and find that that was not the case. There was a divine plan and divine will. It is the divine plan and will that you and I are living here. We have responsibility with society, and the way we can fulfill that responsibility is, as Quran says, where is the example? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In our Prophet lies the best example. And that example is that we have to live for the bigger society, bigger world, for justice, and live with compassion amongst ourselves and for others. May Allah accept this conference once again. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.